Ember Crane stands in the living room of what used to be her house, watching Sterling pack the last of his things into boxes marked with aggressive black Sharpie. She's 48 years old. The divorce papers were signed 3 weeks ago. The house, her dream house. The one she spent 2 years renovating down to the brass doorknobs she found at that estate sale in Prescott, will be sold by Christmas. But that's not the devastating part. The devastating part is that she feels nothing. No rage, no grief, just a peculiar numbness, like watching someone else's life collapse in real time. Sterling says something about the couch. Does she want it, or should he take it? And Ember realizes she doesn't care about the couch. She doesn't care about any of it. The realization hits her with the force of cold water. Somewhere in the last 23 years, she stopped caring about everything. "Keep it," she tells him. Her voice sounds like it's coming from underwater. Sterling nods, adds another item to his mental inventory, and that's when it happens. The thing that will crack her open. He's wearing the Patagonia fleece she bought him for his birthday, the navy one. And she remembers with sudden clarity that she used to hate those fleeces. Used to mock them, actually, back when she was 25 and working at that gallery in Flagstaff. Back when she wore vintage dresses and silver rings on every finger and had opinions about everything. Back when she was someone. The thought arrives fully formed. When did I become a person who buys Patagonia fleeces? It's such a small thing, insignificant, but it opens a trapdoor in her mind, and she's falling through years of small deaths she never noticed happening. The door closes behind Sterling. The house becomes impossibly quiet. Ember sits on the floor, not the couch, the floor, and begins to take inventory of her life. This is where the real story starts, not with the divorce, with what the divorce reveals. The Sedona house smells like sage and regret. Ember's best friend Roxantha, only person from her old life who stayed in touch, insisted on smudging the place after Sterling left. Clearing negative energy, she called it. But Ember knows you can't sage away 23 years of accumulated compromise. She starts in the bedroom, opens the closet. Rows of neutral colors stare back at her. Beige, cream, soft gray, tasteful knits from Anthropologie, linen pants that cost $200 each. When did she start dressing like a woman who serves on nonprofit boards? She pulls out a dress, camel-colored, expensive, appropriate, and cannot remember buying it. Cannot remember wanting it. Cannot remember the last time she wanted anything. The bathroom reveals more evidence. Skincare products lined up like soldiers. All the right brands. The ones recommended by the dermatologist Sterling's insurance covered. She picks up a serum that costs $87 and reads the label: retinol, hyaluronic acid, peptides. She's been putting this on her face for 3 years and doesn't know what any of those words mean. In the kitchen, the coffee maker is a gleaming Italian espresso machine that cost more than her first car. She doesn't drink espresso. Sterling did. She always just wanted regular coffee, but he'd insisted this was better, more sophisticated. And she learned to make herself tiny cappuccinos every morning and pretend to enjoy them. The pretending, that's what's becoming clear. The sheer volume of pretending. Ember opens her laptop and stares at her professional website. Ember Crane, wellness consultant and life coach. The photo shows a woman with highlighted hair and a confident smile, standing against a backdrop of red rocks. The bio describes her holistic approach to personal transformation and her passion for helping others discover their authentic selves. She laughs. It comes out bitter and strange. She's been selling authenticity while living a completely inauthentic life. The irony is so sharp it cuts. Her phone buzzes. A client reminder. She has 3 sessions scheduled this week. Women who pay her $200 an hour to help them break through limiting beliefs. Women who think she has answers. Women who look at her life, the successful business, the beautiful home, the 23-year marriage, and sees someone who figured it out. They don't know Sterling moved out 3 weeks ago. They don't know that Ember can't remember the last time she had an opinion about anything that mattered. They don't know that she's been performing the role of herself for so long, she's forgotten there was ever a real person underneath. The desert outside her window is turning that particular shade of orange it gets in October. The light is almost violent. Ember used to paint that light, used to try to capture it with oils and patience and complete absorption. She hasn't touched a paintbrush in 17 years. She opens the hall closet where Sterling stored his golf clubs. Behind them, shoved into the back corner, she finds something. A cardboard box. Her handwriting on the side, faded but readable. Art supplies, do not throw away. The box is taped shut. Multiple layers. She remembers taping it. Remembers thinking she'd come back to it later when she had time. That was 2008, the year Sterling's business took off. The year they bought this house. The year she became too busy helping him succeed to remember what she wanted to succeed at. Ember carries the box to the living room, sets it on the floor, stares at it like it might explode. In a way, it does, because when she opens it, she finds her old sketchbooks. Pages and pages of drawings she did in her 20s, bold lines, wild colors, zero concern for whether anyone would like them. Zero concern for anything except the pure act of creation. There's a self-portrait from 1997. She's 20 years old. Her hair is short and bleached platinum. She's wearing a vintage slip as a dress. Her eyes are lined with black coal. She looks feral, certain, completely alive. She doesn't recognize this person. No, that's not true. She does recognize her. That's worse. Because recognition means she knows exactly what she lost, knows exactly who she killed. And that person in the painting is staring at her across 28 years with an expression that asks one terrible question. What the hell did you do to us? Ember was 22 when she first arrived in Flagstaff. It was 1999. She'd dropped out of Arizona. Stayed after 3 semesters because the art program felt sterile and academic and completely disconnected from anything real. She packed everything she owned into a 1987 Toyota Corolla and drove north until she found a town that felt like possibility. The first night, she slept in her car in a Safeway parking lot and woke to mountains so beautiful they made her chest hurt. She found a studio apartment above a coffee shop for $300 a month. It had exposed brick and terrible water pressure, and a window that looked out over Route 66. She moved in with a sleeping bag and a hot plate, and her art supplies, and felt more herself than she'd ever felt in her parents' comfortable suburban home. She worked 3 jobs that first year. Mornings at the coffee shop downstairs. Afternoons at a gallery that sold Native American jewelry to tourists. Nights serving drinks at a bar where local artists gathered after their studio sessions. The jobs paid barely enough to survive, but she didn't care. Between shifts, she painted. She painted everything. The mountains, the light, the faces of people she met. Her own face, over and over, trying to capture something she couldn't name. The gallery job is where she met Roxanne. Roxanne was 30 then, already established, with paintings in collections across the Southwest. She took one look at Ember's work and said, "You have something real. Don't let anyone make you smooth out those rough edges." They became inseparable. Roxanne introduced her to the actual art scene, not the tourist galleries, but the warehouse shows, the DIY spaces, the network of creators who were making work because they had to, not because it paid. Ember felt like she'd found her people. People who stayed up until 4 in the morning arguing about Rothko and Basquiat. People who made art with whatever materials they could afford. People who believed making something true mattered more than making something sellable. She had a boyfriend that year, Cade. He was a sculptor who worked in metal and spoke 3 languages and lived in a converted garage with no heat. They'd fight about everything: philosophy, art, politics. Whether Tarantino was a genius or a hackend, then make up by spending entire days in bed reading Naruto to each other. The relationship burned hot and fast and ended after 6 months when he got a grant to study in Barcelona. They both cried at the airport. Neither suggested trying to make it work long distance. They understood that what they had was real, but not meant to last, and that was okay. Some things don't need forever to matter. Ember's first solo show happened when she was 24. A small gallery, really just someone's converted living room, but the opening was packed. She sold 3 paintings, made $800, felt like she'd won the lottery. A woman from Phoenix said her work reminded her of Frida Kahlo meets Edward Hopper. Ember didn't know if that was accurate, but she knew her paintings were honest. They were explorations of loneliness and connection and the strange beauty of desert light. They were pieces of her actual soul. She remembers the night of that opening with crystalline clarity, wearing a thrift store dress that cost $7. Her hair was long then, dark with one stripe of bleached blonde. She'd painted her nails silver. She felt like exactly who she was supposed to be. 24, broke, making art that mattered to her, surrounded by people who got it. Roxanne pulled her aside at one point. They were standing outside, smoking cigarettes. Ember didn't really smoke, but liked holding them, liked the gesture. And Roxanne said, "This is it. This is the moment you'll look back on. Remember this feeling. Remember that you're doing it your way." Ember does, remember? That's the problem. She remembers it perfectly. Those years in Flagstaff were not easy. She was broke constantly, lived on rice and beans, wore the same 6 outfits in rotation, couldn't afford health insurance. Got strep throat once and just toughed it out because urgent care cost $200 she didn't have. Her parents called weekly, concerned, suggesting she come home, go back to school, get a real job. But she was happy. Not comfortable, happy. There's the difference. She woke up every morning certain that she was exactly where she needed to be, doing exactly what she needed to do. The art wasn't making her money, but it was making her complete. She had friends who knew her actual self. She had conversations that challenged her thinking. She had standards she refused to compromise. She dated occasionally. Artists mostly, or writers, or the occasional musician passing through town. None of it was serious. She wasn't looking for serious. She was 25 years old and building a life that felt authentic, and that was enough. Then Sterling walked into the gallery on a Tuesday afternoon in November 2002. Sterling wasn't like the men she usually dated. He wore pressed khakis and a polo shirt. He was in town for a conference, something about medical sales, and wanted to buy art for his new condo in Phoenix. He looked completely out of place among the dream catchers and turquoise jewelry, and Ember found that charming. He asked intelligent questions about the pieces, listened when she talked about the artists, bought a small painting by a local woman for $600 without haggling. Before he left, he asked if Ember would have dinner with him. She almost said no. He wasn't her type. But something about the way he looked at her like she was fascinating, like he wanted to understand her world, made her curious. She said yes. That first dinner lasted 4 hours. Sterling talked about growing up in Scottsdale, about his job in pharmaceutical sales, about his goals to start his own distribution company. Ember talked about art and the desert and her theories about why people make things. He listened like every word mattered. He asked follow-up questions. He was genuinely interested. At 25, Ember had been pursued by plenty of men, but Sterling's interest felt different. It felt like respect. He didn't try to impress her with knowledge about art. He didn't pretend to be something he wasn't. He was. Straightforward about who he was. A businessman who appreciated creativity, but lived in a different world. He found her world fascinating. The first compromise was so small she barely noticed it. Sterling invited her to Phoenix for the weekend. She'd planned to spend those days working on a new series, but she went Phoenix was different from Flagstaff, hotter, flatter, more corporate. Sterling's condo was decorated in what Ember privately called bachelor minimal: black leather couch, glass coffee table, one piece of art she'd helped him pick. She stayed the weekend and found herself enjoying the novelty of it. The restaurants where people dressed up, the comfortable bed, the air conditioning that actually worked. She went back to Flagstaff on Sunday night and felt a small tug she'd never felt before. The studio apartment suddenly seemed shabbier. The lack of air conditioning suddenly seemed less charming. This is how it starts. Not with dramatic declarations, with tiny shifts in perception. They dated long distance for 8 months. Sterling drove up to Flagstaff most weekends. He'd watch her paint, seeming content to just sit and observe. He'd take her to nice dinners, places with wine lists, places she could never afford. He started talking about the future, treasuring exactly, just mentioning possibilities. What if she moved to Phoenix? There was an art scene there too. She could have a real studio, space to work. At 26, she moved. It seemed logical. Sterling had asked her to marry him, and she'd said yes because why had she said yes? She remembers the proposal, a nice restaurant, a tasteful ring, but she can't remember the feeling. Was she excited? Or had she already started performing? The first year in Phoenix, she told herself nothing had really changed. She rented a studio space in Roosevelt Row, continued making art. But Phoenix was harder to navigate than Flagstaff. The art community felt more scattered, more competitive. She was trying to break into new galleries while planning a wedding and learning to live with someone for the first time. Sterling traveled constantly for work. She spent a lot of time alone in a city where she didn't know anyone. The wedding happened when she was 27. Nice, but not extravagant. Her parents were relieved she was settling down. Sterling's parents seemed pleased he'd married someone artistic. Ember wore a dress she didn't love, but everyone said looked beautiful. In the photos, she's smiling. Behind her eyes, something is already dimming. She kept painting that first year of marriage, but Sterling's business was growing and he needed help. Just administrative stuff at first. Could she handle some invoicing? Make some calls? It was temporary, just until he could afford to hire someone. She said yes because that's what partners do. They support each other. The administrative work took 5 hours a week, then 10, then 20. His studio time got compressed. She'd get there at noon, exhausted from a morning of phone calls and spreadsheets, and struggle to reconnect with whatever painting she'd been working on. The work started feeling forced. By 29, she was working for Sterling's company full-time. It hadn't been a decision exactly. It had been a series of small yeses that added up to a completely different life. Sterling's business was thriving. They bought the house in Sedona, the dream house, though Ember couldn't remember when she'd dreamed it. She told herself she could always go back to painting. Later, when things settled down. At 30, she sold her studio space to save money. The paintings went into storage, just temporarily. At 32, she started the life coaching business. It was Sterling's idea. "You're so good with people," he said. "You should monetize that." She took online certification courses, created a website, developed a client base. The work was fine. She was helping people, making decent money, building something. But it wasn't painting. At 35, her mother asked if she was still making art. Ember said yes automatically, then realized it was a lie. She hadn't touched a paintbrush in 3 years. The realization sat in her chest like swallowed glass. She thought about going back, even bought new supplies, set them up in the spare bedroom. But when she stood in front of a blank canvas, nothing came. The voice that used to speak through her hands had gone silent. Or maybe she'd stopped listening. She couldn't tell the difference anymore. At 38, Roxanne visited from Flagstaff. They sat on the deck overlooking the red rocks and drank wine and talked about old times. Roxanne asked about her work, meaning her art. Ember deflected, talked about her coaching business instead. Roxanne got quiet. Then she said, "You remember what I told you? About doing it your way?" Ember remembered. "I'm worried you forgot," Roxanne said. Ember laughed it off. Said she was happy. Said she'd found a different path. Said art wasn't everything. Roxanne didn't argue, but her expression said enough. After she left, Ember stood in the spare bedroom staring at the unopened art supplies and felt something she couldn't name. Wasn't grief. Wasn't anger. Was something emptier than both? The years after that blurred together. 40 came and went. Her coaching business grew. She became known in Sedona wellness circles, got asked to speak at events, developed a following on Instagram. From the outside, her life looked enviable. Beautiful home, successful career, long marriage. She posted photos of sunrise hikes and motivational quotes, and herself smiling in athleisure wear against stunning backdrops. None of it was fake exactly. She did hike, did believe the quotes she posted, did smile in those moments, but it was all curated, all performance. She was playing a role she'd somehow been cast in without auditioning. At 45, she and Sterling had sex 3 times that year, all initiated by him, all completed efficiently. Afterward, they'd lie in the dark, not touching, and Ember would wonder if this was what marriage became, or if something was broken. She never asked. Asking felt dangerous. At 47, she realized she couldn't name a single thing she wanted. Not genuinely wanted. Sterling would ask what she wanted for dinner, where she wanted to vacation, what she wanted for Christmas, and she'd say whatever you want, because she truly didn't know. The wanting part of her had atrophied, died, been buried under years of compromise. And then came the night Sterling said he wanted a divorce. The day after Sterling leaves, Ember forces herself to do what she tells her clients to do: make an honest assessment. She sits down with a legal pad and begins writing an inventory of her life, not the Instagram version, the real version. Marriage. 23 years to a man she realizes she doesn't know. They shared a bed, a mortgage, a last name, but not a single meaningful conversation in the last decade. When did they stop talking? Actually talking about ideas, about feelings, about anything beyond logistics. She scrolls through her phone looking for evidence of intimacy. The texts are all practical. Picking up dry cleaning, don't forget dentist appointment, home by 7. Not one expression of affection. Not one joke. Not one moment of connection. She thinks about their last vacation. 2 years ago, Mexico. They sat on a beach for a week, read separate books, had polite dinners. She posted photos of margaritas and sunsets, captioned them paradise with heart emojis. They'd had sex once, mechanical and perfunctory. On the plane home, Sterling asked if she had a nice time. She said yes. He said good and went back to his laptop. That was the extent of their meaningful interaction. Friendships. Roxanne, who she sees maybe twice a year now. A handful of acquaintances in Sedona women she does yoga with. Women in her networking group who she could not call in a crisis. No one who knows her. Actually knows her. She has 4,000 Instagram followers and 0 friends. When did this happen? She used to have people. Real people. She thinks about Flagstaff, about the late-night conversations, about the way her community would show up for gallery openings, bring wine, stay until 2 a.m. arguing about whether art had to have meaning or if beauty was enough. She can't remember the last time she had a conversation that mattered. Creative life. Dead. 17 years dead. The last painting she completed was in 2008. She remembers it vividly. A portrait of a woman who looked like her but wasn't quite her. The woman's eyes were looking away from the viewer, searching for something outside the frame. Ember hung it in the guest room, where no one sees it. Sterling once suggested they replace it with something more neutral. She said, okay. The sketchbooks in her closet number 47, years 1997 through 2008. 47 notebooks filled with drawings and ideas and explorations of what it meant to see the world honestly. Since 2008, nothing. Not one sketch. Not one experiment. Not one moment where she picked up a pencil and tried to capture what was in front of her. Career, successful by external metrics. She makes 6 figures telling other people how to live authentically. The irony is so thick she could paint it. Wait, no, she couldn't. She doesn't paint anymore. She scrolls through testimonials on her website. Ember changed my life. She helped me find my true self. Best investment I ever made. Every word feels like an indictment. Identity. This is the section where her hand starts shaking. Who is she? Not who does she appear to be, who is she? She stares at the question for 20 minutes, writes nothing, because she doesn't know. She knows who she was, knows who she's pretending to be, but who she actually is in 2025. She has no idea. She looks in the mirror, sees a 48-year-old woman with expensive highlights and good skincare and an expression that registers as pleasant but blank. She tries to remember the last time she felt something intensely, the last time she laughed until she couldn't breathe, the last time she cried because something moved her, the last time she got angry enough to argue, the last time she wanted something so badly it scared her. The answer keeps coming back. I don't remember. Most people, if they're honest, would admit they're performing some version of themselves, that they've smoothed rough edges and modified authentic responses to fit expectations. But what Ember is confronting is different. It's not that she's performing, it's that there's nothing underneath the performance anymore. The authentic self didn't just go dormant, it got erased, painted over, completely annihilated by decades of small accommodations. She thinks about the clients she's coaching this week. 3 women, all in their 30s, all struggling with some version of, I don't know what I want. She realizes with horror that she has no business helping them. She's a fraud. She's been giving advice she hasn't followed herself, telling them to honor their truth while she's spent 20 years betraying hers. Physical health, fine on paper. She runs, does yoga, eats organic, takes all the right supplements. But she's been running on autopilot so long, she can't remember the last time movement felt like joy instead of maintenance. She used to hike because the desert made her feel something live, connected, odd. Now she hikes because it's good for her. She posts photos of sunrise trail runs with captions about gratitude and wellness. The captions are lies. She doesn't feel grateful. She doesn't feel anything. Financial situation. The divorce will cut her assets in half. The house will sell. She'll have enough to start over, but not enough to maintain the life she's been living. She realizes she's relieved. The life she's been living costs too much. Not just financially. It costs everything. Sexuality. She writes this word and almost laughs. What? Sexuality? She and Sterling had stopped having meaningful physical intimacy years ago. But beyond that, when was the last time she felt desire? Actual wanting? Not going through motions, but feeling attraction pull her toward another person. She can't remember. At 25, she was so alive in her body, so certain of her desires, so unashamed. Now? Now she's a middle-aged woman who has sex 3 times a year and considers that normal. The inventory takes 3 hours. By the end, she's staring at a portrait of someone who doesn't exist. Someone who gave up painting to help sell pharmaceuticals. Someone who became a life coach while her own life fell apart. Someone who posted about authenticity while living completely inauthentically. Someone who spent 23 years married to a man she didn't love and who didn't love her. They just agreed to share space and pretend it was partnership. Ember looks at the list and realizes something worse than anything she's written. This didn't happen to her. She chose this. Not in one big decision, but in 10,000 small ones. Every time she said yes, when she meant no. Every time she silenced the voice that said, this isn't right. Every time she prioritized comfort over truth. Every time she chose safety over aliveness. She made this life. She killed who she was. Not all at once, degree by degree, compromise by compromise. Until the original person was completely buried under layers of acceptable choices. Most people will recognize this. Not the specific details, but the core truth. We all know exactly when we started betraying ourselves. We remember the first time we silenced our real opinion. The first time we pretended to like something we didn't. The first time we chose what looked good over what felt true. We remember. We just pretend we don't, because remembering hurts too much. Ember closes the legal pad, sits in the silence of her beautiful house, and feels the full weight of what she's lost. It's not the marriage, not the version of life she thought she was building. It's the person she used to be. The girl who painted fearlessly, who had opinions, who wanted things, who was alive. That person is gone, not sleeping, not waiting, actually gone. And suddenly, at 48 years old, Ember Crane realizes she's been dead for 17 years. She's been walking around pretending otherwise. The call comes on a Thursday, 3 weeks after the inventory. 3 weeks of Ember moving through her days like a ghost haunting her own life. Still seeing clients. Still posting on Instagram. Still performing. Because what else does she know how to do? It's Roxanne. Her voice sounds wrong, tight. Careful in the way people get when they're delivering news that will break something. I need to tell you something, Roxanne says. About Sterling. Ember's first thought is that he died. Car accident. Heart attack. Something sudden. She's surprised by the complete absence of feeling that thought produces. Not relief, not grief, nothing. But that's not it. He's been seeing someone, Roxanne says, for 2 years. Her name is Nicole. She's 31, an attorney in Phoenix. I only know because my friend Maya saw them together at a restaurant. Not trying to hide together. Together. Ember sits down. The information lands, but doesn't sink in. Sterling was having an affair for 2 years. The math clicks into place. It started before he asked for the divorce. Maybe he asked for the divorce because of her. Maybe the whole "we've grown apart" speech was just cover for "I found someone younger." Roxanne is still talking, apologizing for telling her, asking if she's okay, if she needs her to come down, if she needs anything. "I'm fine," Ember hears herself say. The automatic response, the performance continuing even now. But after she hangs up, something cracks. Not about the affair. The affair almost makes sense. 2 people in a dead marriage. One of them found an exit. What cracks is something else. A realization that arrives with devastating clarity. Sterling had a whole secret life, a whole part of himself he was hiding. He wanted something badly enough to risk everything. He wanted it badly enough to lie, to sneak around, to have an actual affair. He wanted something, and Ember realizes she's not even angry. She's jealous. He had passion. Even if it was directed at someone else, even if it was wrong, even if it was selfish, he wanted something so much that he made choices, took risks, felt something strongly enough to act on it. Ember hasn't wanted anything in years. She walks through the house she's about to lose and realizes it's not her house. It never was. It's a stage set for a life she didn't choose. She opens the closet full of expensive neutral clothes and realizes they're costumes for a character she doesn't recognize. She looks at her website, at the smiling woman claiming to help others find authenticity, and realizes it's just another performance. The affair isn't the breaking point. The breaking point is the comparison. Sterling, for all his faults, was alive enough to want something, to pursue something, to feel something strong enough to upend his comfortable life. What does Ember feel? She sits with that question. Really sits with it. Turns off her phone, pours a glass of wine, watches the sun set over the red rocks through her floor-to-ceiling windows, and forces herself to feel whatever comes up. At first, nothing. The familiar numbness, the comfortable disconnect. But she keeps sitting, keeps waiting, and slowly, like blood returning to a limb that fell asleep, something starts to surface. It's not a clean emotion, not something she can name easily. It's rage and grief and terror all mixed together. It's the accumulated weight of 17 years of silencing herself. It's every time she said yes when she meant no. Every time she made herself small. Every time she chose safety over truth. It rises up like a wave. She tries to push it back down. That's her habit. That's what she's always done. But this time, she can't. It's too big. It crashes over her and she's sobbing on the floor of her tasteful living room. Mascara running, body shaking, making sounds she didn't know she could make. She's not crying about Sterling. She's not even crying about the affair. She's crying for the girl who used to paint, for the woman who had opinions, for every version of herself she murdered to maintain comfort. She's crying for 20 years of wasted time, for the art she didn't make, for the risks she didn't take, for the life she could have had if she'd just been brave enough to stay herself. Most people will avoid this moment their entire lives, will keep themselves so busy and distracted and medicated they never have to feel the full weight of their accumulated compromises. Will reach 75 having never confronted what they gave up, having never asked if the comfort was worth the cost. But Ember can't avoid it anymore. The divorce cracked something open. The affair broke it completely. And now she's sitting in the rubble of her carefully constructed life, finally feeling everything she's been running from for 2 decades. She cries until she can't cry anymore, until her throat hurts and her eyes burn and her body is exhausted. And then, in the silence after the storm, a thought arrives. Clear and cold and absolutely certain, I am 48 years old. If I live to 80, which is optimistic given my family history, I have 32 years left. 32 years. That's less time than I've already wasted. The math is brutal, undeniable. She has fewer years ahead than behind. And every day she continues living this half-life is a day she'll never get back. She looks around the living room, the tasteful furniture, the art she didn't make, the life she didn't choose. And she knows with absolute clarity that she cannot spend one more day here, cannot spend one more day pretending, cannot spend one more day performing the role of someone who has it together. Something has to change, not eventually, not when the divorce is final, not when she figures it all out, now. Ember stands up from the floor of her living room. Her face is swollen, her breath is ragged. But something is different. She can feel it, like a switch flipping, like waking up from a long anesthesia. She walks to the spare bedroom, the one with the unopened art supplies, rips open the packages with her hands, not bothering to find scissors, sets up a canvas, squeezes paint onto a palette, not thinking about what colors, just choosing, picks up a brush, stares at the blank white surface. For a moment, the familiar panic rises. What if nothing comes? What if the voice is gone forever? What if 17 years away is too long? But then she remembers. This is the fear that kept her away. This is the voice that convinced her to wait, to prepare, to be ready. That voice is a liar. That voice killed her. She puts brush to canvas, makes a mark. Doesn't think, just moves. The mark is terrible, clumsy. She hasn't painted in 17 years and it shows. But she makes another mark, and another. Not trying to create something good, just trying to remember what it feels like to create. The painting that emerges over the next 3 hours is objectively bad. The colors are garish. The composition is weak. It looks like something a talented high school student might make. But it's the most honest thing Ember has done in nearly 2 decades. She doesn't post it on Instagram, doesn't photograph it, doesn't think about whether anyone would like it. She makes it because she has to. Because making it feels like breathing after being underwater. The next morning, she cancels all her client sessions for the week. Sends an email that's more honest than anything she's written professionally. I need to step away temporarily to address some personal matters. I apologize for the inconvenience. 3 clients respond immediately with concern. She doesn't respond, she's done performing. She starts making calls. The first is to a Flagstaff gallery owner she knew in her 20s. "This is Ember Crane," she says. "I used to paint. I stopped. I'm starting again. I have no idea if I'm any good anymore, but I need studio space. Do you know anyone?" The second call is to Roxanne. "I need help," she says. "No performance. No pretense. I don't know how to be myself anymore. I forgot. Or I killed her. Or both. But I want to try to find her again." Roxanne drives down that afternoon. They sit on the deck, the same deck where they sat 7 years ago, when Roxanne warned her she was losing herself, and Ember tells her everything. About the 17 years of compromise. About becoming a fraud. About Sterling's affair. About the inventory. About the breaking point. About the realization that she has maybe 32 years left and can't waste another day. Roxanne doesn't offer platitudes. Doesn't say it's not too late or you can rebuild. Instead, she says something harder. You're going to have to do scary things, not just once, every day. You're going to have to choose honesty over comfort, probably for the rest of your life. And you're going to lose things. Maybe more things. People won't like this version of you as much as they liked the agreeable one. I know, Ember says. And she does know. That's what makes this different from all the other times she thought about changing. This time, she's not looking for a comfortable transformation. She's looking for a true one. Over the next 3 weeks, Ember begins the real work. Not the Instagram-friendly version of reinvention. The actual, messy, uncomfortable work of becoming honest. She writes a letter. Not to Sterling, he doesn't deserve her honesty anymore. To herself. Specifically to the girl she used to be. The one in the self-portrait from 1997, the one with the short platinum, hair and the eyeliner and the complete certainty about who she was. The letter starts, "I'm sorry I killed you." She writes for 6 pages, catalogs every betrayal, every compromise, every moment she chose safety over truth. She doesn't make excuses, doesn't try to justify, just apologizes. Then she writes something else. "I can't bring you back. You're gone. But maybe I can build something new. Someone who remembers what you knew, but has lived through what I've lived through. Someone who learned the hard way that comfort costs everything." She burns the letter in a fire pit on her deck, watches the pages curl and blacken. It feels ceremonial. It feels like a funeral and a beginning. The house sells in 2 weeks. She doesn't mourn it. Takes her half of the money and rents a small casita in Flagstaff, 1 bedroom, 700 square feet. Windows facing north, perfect painting light. It's not Sedona. Doesn't have the views or the prestige or the space. But when she walks in, she feels something she hasn't felt in years. Possibility. She doesn't restart her coaching business. Can't. Won't. Instead, she sends an email to all her clients, Sonest, again explaining that she's stepping away permanently. That she realized she was teaching things she hadn't embodied. That she can't ethically take their money anymore. Several clients are angry. Several are confused. One writes back, "This is the most helpful thing you've ever taught me. That it's never too late, to be honest." She paints every day. Not well at first. The skills are rusty. The instincts are buried. But she shows up, makes marks, tries things, Fails, tries again. Slowly, degree by degree, something starts to return. Not the person she was at 22. That person is gone, but someone new. Someone who knows what it costs to betray yourself. Someone who won't make that mistake again. 4 months after Sterling leaves, Ember sees him at a coffee shop in Scottsdale. She's there meeting a gallery owner. He's there with Nicole, the 31-year-old attorney. She's beautiful in the way people are in Phoenix, groomed, polished, expensive. They're holding hands. Sterling sees Ember, looks uncomfortable, starts to get up, but Ember walks over, extends her hand to Nicole. "I'm Ember," she says, "the ex-wife. Nice to meet you." Nicole looks terrified. Sterling looks shocked. Ember feels nothing. No anger, no jealousy, no desire to make a scene, just a strange sense of gratitude. Because Sterling leaving in the affair and the devastation cracked her open enough to start rebuilding. "I hope you're happy," she tells them, and she means it. Not in a bitter, ironic way, actually means it. Because if Sterling hadn't left, she'd still be performing, still be comfortable, still be slowly dying. She walks back to her table and realizes she's free. The painting that finally feels right comes 6 months after the divorce. It's a self-portrait, but not like the one from 1997. This woman is older. Hair graying naturally now, she's stopped coloring it. Face lined from crying and sun and time. Eyes that have seen loss, but there's something in the expression. Something alive, something honest, something unafraid. She hangs it in the casita, right where she can see it every morning when she wakes up. A reminder of who she's becoming. Not who she was, not who she pretended to be. Someone new. Someone built from honesty and hard choices and the understanding that every day matters because there are fewer ahead than behind. Ember is 48 years old. She has no husband, no big house, no successful coaching business, no Instagram following that cares about her anymore, no certainty about what comes next. But she has herself back. And for the first time in 17 years, that feels like enough. If this story sounds familiar, it should. Most of us are living some version of it right now, not the specific details. Maybe you didn't give up painting. Maybe you didn't get divorced. Maybe your betrayals look different. But the core truth is the same. We compromise, degree by degree, year by year, until one day we look up and don't recognize the person looking back. The devastating gift of loss. The thing nobody tells you is that it can crack you open enough to start over. Not comfortable, not easy, but real, actually real. Most people wait until it's too late. Until they're 75 and looking back at a life built on compromises they can never undo. Don't wait. Don't wait for the crisis. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until you figure it all out. You're dying right now. Every second you spend performing someone else's version of your life is a second you'll never recover. The math is brutal. If you're 35, you probably have 50 years left at best. That sounds like a lot until you realize you've already wasted how many? 5? 10? 20? What would you do if you had 5 years left? What would you stop pretending? What would you start saying? Who would you stop being? Now ask yourself, why wait? Why do you need a crisis to choose honesty? Why do you need a divorce or a diagnosis or a death to start living like your time matters? The person you used to be before the compromises, before the performance, before you learned to silence. Yourself to keep peace, that person is still in there. Buried maybe, dormant maybe, but not dead, not yet. You can spend the rest of your life digging out. Making different choices. Choosing truth over comfort. It won't be easy. People won't like it. You'll lose things. But you'll be alive. Actually alive. Not performing aliveness. Actually feeling it. Or you can keep performing. Keep compromising. Keep waiting for permission or perfect conditions, or until you figure it out. And wake up at 65 realizing you spent 40 years playing a role in a life you never wanted. Ember's story is happening everywhere, to everyone. The only question is when you'll recognize it in your own life, and whether you'll have the courage to do something about it before it's too late. Most people won't. Most people will read this, feel something stir, and go right back to their comfortable compromises. Will tell themselves later. Will tell themselves it's not that bad. Will tell themselves they're different. Don't be most people. The clock is running. It's always running. And every moment you spend being anyone other than yourself is a moment you're actively choosing to die slowly instead of live urgently. Choose better. Choose now. Choose honestly. Because nobody gets to the end and wishes they'd compromised more.